Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Deck Collection 101 here on R-Byte-U. And today we are going to be talking about something that's super important, and that's going to be how to and different ways to collect opt-in consent in today's modern communications environment. But who better to join us than our head of product, Kaitlyn, expert on the topic, constantly is discussing this internally and has a ton of things that can help everybody out. And yeah, Ash will be co-hosting with me. So thanks for joining. Ash, if anyone who doesn't know Ashley, I'm sure everybody watching does, but she's our customer success manager here at R-Byte. So thanks you two for joining us.
Well, thanks for having us. It's been a while since we filmed one of these, and I'm excited to talk about OptIns today. Like you said, this is a super important topic. With FregF coming out, I think everybody has digital communications on their mind. And, for anybody who wants to get into there and they haven't gotten in yet, I think the best place to start, even if you're not ready to, start sending out text or emails today, starting as soon as you can with OptIns is so important. So from your guys' perspective, I don't know if there was a place that you wanted to start the conversation and kick things off.
So, why do people need opt-ins? Well, what is an opt-in? Let's just start there at the roots. What's an opt-in and why do collection agencies need them?
Great question. So typically when people think about opt-ins, I think we're really familiar with thinking about them in the realm of text or email, but this can be really applied across any channel. And, of course, it's still applicable to calling. And as we get more into the future, things even like social media can be a great place to collect opt-ins. Really what you're looking for here is getting that express consent piece from the consumer. And this can happen in a lot of different ways. We're going to go over a couple of them with you guys today and easy ways that you can start doing this today. But really getting that consent from the consumer on that channel level specifically to be able to send them contacts and just be in communication with them.
Awesome. And what can opt-ins be used for specifically?
Yeah, great question. So like I said, it can really be used across channels. And when you're building out your opt-in and consent process, something, again, really important to make sure that you're doing with this is not just collecting this blanket opt-in. Typically, when you're looking across different channels, it's not what either, the carriers or the providers are going to want to see. They're really going to want to see specifically for each channel. So again, this goes into the piece that I kind of started out and alluded to in saying, maybe you're not ready today to start texting or emailing or doing crazy things on social media. I think that's a little farther out in the future. But what's really important is even if that, that's 6 months down the line, starting to collect these opt-ins today is going to put you in a really good place to be able to do those communications effectively when you get to that point. So if there's one takeaway, and you'll probably hear me say it time and time again over the course of this meeting today, but the sooner that you can kind of just start wrapping your mind around how you're going to collect this opt-in piece is going to be really, really important.
So there's obviously a huge spectrum of collection agencies in the terms of their size and what they're capable of and the technologies that they have access to. So could you take us through maybe some practical ways to actually collect opt-ins for agencies?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to. So starting out, I think, when we think across all agencies, and something that I want to imagine almost every agency has in their office is some sort of phone system, some sort of way where you're contacting consumers over the phone. And if we're thinking about this piece alone, this is a huge opportunity to start this opt-in process already. When your consumers are, when your agents are on the phone with the consumers, this is a huge opportunity as those calls are wrapping up, as you know that you're either taking a payment or there's going to be promise to pay or just a communication that's happening later. Don't miss out on the opportunity right here to ask for that piece of consent. And again, this goes back to making sure you're getting it across the channels. So can we text you? Can we send you an email? What address can we send it on? And getting all that information. So, just really making sure that you're working that into your collector's process and workflow. And I don't want to name specific names and cause any trouble on here, but there's a ton of solutions out there that offer really, really cool scripting tools. And they can actually lay out for you step by step for your agents of exactly what to say next. If they don't say pieces, it'll kind of highlight it for them and make sure that they say it on the next calls. So if you're interested in something like that, please reach out to any of us. We can kind of point you in the right direction there. But I would definitely say the calling piece is a huge opportunity for your agents, again, to just kind of work that into your scripts and your workflow when they're taking those calls. I'm going to pause there before we move on to some next options. Do you guys have any questions, comments on that one?
So that's kind of like what I'm telling people who ask about the best way to collect consent. And I feel like it's the easiest option for agencies because they are constantly talking to consumers. Although they do get that, like if someone says, yeah, you could text me, they still have to have a way to notate that they grab that consent in their software, right? Like they need to have a checkbox or something that they notate and says that, not just like a note, right?
Great. Yeah, great question. So again, I don't want to name specific names, but there's a ton of software out there on the market right now that is actually building this into their systems where you can notate per channel where that consumer specifically has opted into texting. Again, if you're getting that express consent verbally over the phone, having that recording piece is going to be really important. So talking to your vendors about, what their data retention policies are and where their recordings are stored and how you can kind of access those if needed in the future is going to be really important as well. But yeah, great point there, making sure that, not only you're asking for it, but of course there's a way to track this across your accounts as they're kind of coming in and collecting that consent on the different accounts.
So we covered the most basic way and the easiest that anybody could basically do today. I mean, any agency can do this, right? They don't necessarily need to track that in their software. I mean, they could track it somewhere else, an Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah.
something, right? Anything, just track it.
Mhm.
So even if your software doesn't have access to it, like it is possible. Everyone talks to a consumer. You just ask for consent.
Mhm.
Simple as that, right? What are some more advanced ways though, right? Because I've already talked to the consumer now.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Like an opt-in is only so useful at that point. I feel like as being a former collector, I've already got the consumer on the phone. I already talked to them. How do I, a lot of people want to use modern communication methods to reach the consumer.
Mhm.
So how do
Yeah.
you get an opt-in before you've ever reached the consumer?
Great question there. And like you said, everybody in their office across the board, I'd say probably has a phone system, but moving into some of these more advanced strategies that you can implement. And even for anybody else sitting out there, we're going to kind of talk you through ways that you can easily implement this if you don't have them in place right now. But one of these best ways to get these opt-ins before you even get to the point of being on the call with the consumer is having options on your website. So if you follow us here at Arbite, we're super passionate about having a great online presence. We love to do videos like this. We love to put out all kinds of content. So thinking about yourself as an agency, not even just from an opt-in piece here, I think there's just so much opportunity to, look at your website and what I've seen be common across the industry is agencies build these beautiful websites for their first party creditors and talking about, how they have these great processes and they're going to collect all this money, but they don't have anything there for the consumer. Kind of taking a step back, looking at your website and looking who it's speaking to. And if there's nothing there for the consumer, how would you ever expect them to come to this website and want to, complete a transaction with you? So first taking a step and, if you don't have a website already, there's a ton of easy tools to build them out there. I always say I'm not technical at all, but even I can build a website on some of these tools like Wix and Squarespace are popular ones. WordPress is another one. But, from there, once you have that website, making sure that it's really consumer friendly, it speaks to the consumer, it talks about how you're going to help them, make them the hero of the story there, explain how you're going to solve their problems, how you're going to help them get out of debt. That's really important in terms of messaging. And then finally, on that website, making it very clear, very conspicuous, and importantly, very easy for the consumer to find a place to opt in. So whether that's a checkbox, whether that's a form, and you can set this up super simple, even with a Google form, it's completely free for you to do. You can set it up in a couple of minutes and just, again, collecting those opt-ins. And again, thinking about into the future, making sure that if you're setting up these opt-ins to be collected on the website, not just thinking about for tomorrow when you might want to try texting, but thinking into the future of all the places you might want to potentially have an opt-in for, so that when you get to the point of implementing that channel, you have those opt-ins already collected and you're moving in the right direction there. So I always say, the more you can collect, the better, and kind of just starting out on a high level there. So again, that website piece can be so, so important. And even when we look on the texting side specifically, just having that website available from a brand standpoint is really, really important. So again, I'll stop there. Any additional thoughts on your guys' side about websites and what you guys have seen in the industry over the years?
I was just going to say back to like Alex's point into getting into like a more advanced way of collecting opt-ins. And like the website is great for that. And especially for people who are using already more advanced options of trying to reach the consumer, or agencies who want to get into texting and emailing. I feel like if they ended up doing that on their website. It should be like, I would say, or recommend that it should be like right on their front page and easily accessible, if they do want to use those channels quicker and easier to get opt-ins. That it should probably be right easy popped up or something where the consumer can see that and say, okay, yeah, I would rather get a text message. Like, and that kind of goes back to like, I say age, and I have brought this up in other meetings or webinars, like millennials. I'm considered a millennial and I hate being on the phone. I would rather get a text. So I've come to learn that it's not just millennials anymore. I think a lot of people hate talking on the phone. So if someone of any age is texting, they're most likely going to be able to access your website, which would help a lot of, different types of consumers do that.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody, so many people would rather text now. And there's objective reasons why, especially in debt collection, why it would be super helpful to text somebody rather than communicate. You can reference back to that conversation. You can't do that you can't reference back your phone call, right? You're not going to go listen to a recording on your cell phone. That doesn't work that way. But to the point of the website, it is super common for agencies, and agencies are, I don't want to say they're different because I don't want to make it seem like they're like not able to accomplish this, but agencies are kind of unique in the sense that you have like these two customers almost. You have the creditors or whoever you're getting the debt from that you're collecting on, and then you have your consumer. And basically they're both kind of like, right, if you were to look at it in this abstract sense of like who's your customer, they both kind of are, right? You want to service these people and collect their debt well, so you're going to show your benefits to them. But you also now, at least the consumer is the end transaction, right? They're the one that's ultimately paying you, and it's something that there's a lot of companies that have focused a ton on this aspect over the past 10 years or whatever, since e-commerce has been huge. But like Amazon, for example, like they focus so much on just making it easy for you to buy things. Easy. Like now you can just one click buy. Like you don't have to do anything other than one click, and it ships it to you instantly. And like they do this for a reason, obviously, and it makes it easier. And for someone to check out, the easier it is for someone to check out, the more likely they are going to do it, right? So same thing with this opt-in type concept that you're referencing. And so just to like reiterate how I think a lot of agencies maybe don't look at themselves in that sense, but they need to start to, because like who's at the end of the day giving you the money? The consumer is giving you the money. So like they're maybe trying to change your point of view on this, I think would be super important for collection agencies, particularly with their website. But
and I feel like there's also a lot of agencies out there that don't even have a website. So that should be your first starting point. You should definitely, if you don't have one now, go and do it, because it is 100% worth it.
Yeah. And to go off all those pieces, I think that there's so many agencies that I know even I've talked to where it feels like all these pieces and you have to do, I have to go out and find a vendor for a website, and that's going to cost so much. And I have to build this like extravagant opt-in process. And I think the piece that is, again, really important to take away from this is just start small. Just start with a one landing page website that, has basic information, and just start with those people who want to receive text messages. Like Ashley said, there's, I'm also a millennial, and I know for me, I get phone calls on my phone and I watch them ring and I wait for them to go to voicemail. I don't want to answer them. Start with those people. Start with the people who want to get text. You don't have to, send out a texting campaign with 100,000 accounts on it. Even if it's a super small campaign, start to move in that direction and it'll build over time. So again, I think just kind of taking baby steps there and starting to approach those things, or maybe it feels scary or risky or new, just, in small pieces, and it'll definitely build up over time. So yeah, I agree with all that.
Yeah, I think for the opt-in process, there isn't really one, there's not a silver bullet for it. It's something that you need to like kind of have, a bunch of irons in the fire going all at once, and getting opt-ins everywhere you can. So one interest, I know this is something that's been talked about before, and I think it's more relevant now that with COVID, because people have used these at almost every restaurant during COVID. So how can somebody use snail mail? I already know the answer, but I'm asking it anyways so that people watching can learn. But how can somebody use snail mail to collect opt-ins for digital communication methods?
Yeah, I love this question. And, specifically the piece that you talked about towards website is going to be something that we kind of add the extra step into there later. But, starting out, again, thinking about your validation notices that are going out, your letters that are going out, this is just another opportunity, again, for a consumer to look at that document and see that you have the availability as an agency to receive text messages, to receive emails, to contact consumers in that way. Let them know and let them contact you there first. Kind of the gold standard when you're thinking about opt-ins is the scenario where you can get the consumer to text you first. That automatically is going to give you an opt-in on that channel. And that, again, it's just best case scenario in terms of deliverability, in terms of just ramping up your brand on, your email service or your texting service. When these carriers can see that consumers are texting into you and they want to communicate that way, that's a huge positive. And again, why we talk about these opt-ins being so important as we move into these digital channels. Of course, you have the legal perspective of it, but even thinking from a deliverability standpoint, it's not the days where we can kind of just send out calls and, hope for the best. You have to have great deliverability rates on these text messages and emails for it to continue to send out at the rate that you wanted to send out. So making sure that opt-in piece there isn't just something that, it's good to have and you should do it. It's something that you need to have when it comes to these digital communication channels. But coming back to that letter piece again, like I said, I really, really like this one. And actually, I recently encountered a situation where I wish that this would have been the way that they implemented it. I recently moved houses and I had to set up my utilities and billing. So for my first bill for my utilities, they mailed me out a letter to my house, which is a little old fashioned, but I get it. And I open it up, and on the letter that they send me, there's this super, super long link that I can pay online at. Of course, I want to pay online because it's 2021, but I had to type in this link and it was crazy. And I typed it in wrong 3 times because I always make typos. It was so frustrating. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to make your consumers do that. QR codes are a great way to get around this. There's those little blocks, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that you see at probably every restaurant now where you scan it, it brings up the menu. In this case, you can send it right to the payment portal, or you can send it right to your website to opt in. This is such a great option. And again, it just cuts down on that frustration for the consumer. It cuts down on that friction. And instead of the consumer being so frustrated by the time that they hit your payment portal where they don't even want to do anything anymore, it's going to be super easy. And again, it's just going to make that whole transaction just a lot less frictionless. So thinking about that letter piece, QR codes are a great kind of second component to add in there over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree. And I think QR codes are free to get, right?
Yeah.
So would cost you nothing to add that on to your letters or emails, validation notices, so on and so forth. So definitely something easy to do.
Yeah, and I think I think if somebody was to implement all of those methods right there, you could do that in a week's time. Easy. And because you don't need I think like you said earlier, Kaitlyn, like some people get overwhelmed. Like a lot of this stuff isn't super in depth, right? Change a few words on your letterhead, text us at 844-444-4401. That's it. That's all you got to do, and boom, now you can, obviously that number needs to be able to receive text, but there's tons of places out there you can do that. Even there's free ones. I'm pretty sure you can just get a number that receives text. It's not gonna be some elaborate thing where it's gonna get routed to the right collector or anything yet, but you still can see the text and get it. So there's 100 ways to get started in that world. I think it's just a matter of getting people to do it. So how do you, that's a struggle though today, getting people to change something that they're so used to doing. How do you think how long do you think that's going to take?
Well, I've been in the industry for about 3 years, and I know in my time here, that's something I hear people say all the time is they're frustrated with how slow things can change. I know even more specifically with Reg F rolling out and those model validation notices, I heard some people were having issues getting those letters changed. So again, I think the biggest takeaway that you can have here is if you're an agency and you want to make change, if you're looking at your right party contract rates, if you're looking at your collection rates and they're not where you want to be, and you want to move to digital communication, even if you're not ready to start it now, start the opt-in process now. There's nothing that it's going to hurt you with, and it's not a lot of work. So, any step that you can take in that direction, I think is going to be a positive change that you need. And, again, I know it can be frustrating kind of looking at the industry and thinking, things aren't moving fast enough or they're not moving at the pace that I want to, but there's nothing stopping you from being that business that takes the first step there. And I think that's really going to set certain businesses apart from the crowd. If they're going to be that agency who, kind of wants to take that first step and start those digital communications earlier than other people. So I think there's a lot to gain. And particularly when it comes to starting that opt-in process, I would say there's almost nothing to lose.
Yeah,
I agree.
I would agree as well. I think a lot of people, since a lot of these digital communication channels are newer, everyone in the industry is hesitant to use these because laws and regulations and everything. But to use those digital communication methods, you do need to have an opt-in process. So like you said, Kaitlyn, definitely at least get that started. I know no one wants to be a guinea pig in a lawsuit. And that's kind of what I hear a lot, is that people are kind of just waiting to see how things play out. But there's a lot of things that you could do to minimize that, especially with all the laws and regulations that have come out, where it is kind of more clear for agencies now on how to use these new digital communications.
Yeah, I think one piece of this digital communications, I feel like a lot of the digital communication talk and text talk and email talk is always about, well, millennials don't want to be on the phone. It always boils down to that's what the consumer wants, which, I believe that, of course, but there is another side, which is just, it's just straight more productive. You can have your agents more, increase their productivity by a significant amount. If you have consumers, if you have consumers communicating with your agency through these channels, one collector can handle way more accounts through text and email than they could over the phone. If I'm a collector on the phone, I can only handle that one account at one time. That's it. You can't have 3 headsets to your head, right? It's just not possible. But with these text communication channels, specifically texting and emailing, you can. That's what they're designed, like that's what it's intended for a lot of the times, is to manage both. And again, there's like, you don't need to have an instant reply. It's easy to manage a couple at the same time. Usually there's like scripted replies and things like this, right? So yeah, it's and today, of course, it's hard to hire. Not news to anybody watching this or any of us. We've heard this as a huge pain point. So what better way to start and it's hard to hire. Great. So now you don't need to hire as many people if your agents are 3 times more productive than they used to be. So you're kind of solving, 2 problems with 1 stone here. But yeah. So anything else on opt-ins, Kaitlyn?
No, I don't think I have anything else. Like I said, I sound like a broken record here, but please, if you think that you want to text this year, next year, at any point in time, please just start your opt-in process. I promise it's not going to be as painful as you think it is, and you'll be on your way to having those opt-ins collected sooner than you think.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Thanks, Kaitlyn. Thanks, Ash, for this great episode. So everybody like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.